Welcome. To begin this evening, I'd like for us to meditate on two songs. I would like for you to focus the first song on your heart, and the second song we're going to focus on the third eye, which is right here. So during this time, just keep your attention and your will on those areas of your body, and you can kind of watch me meditate as you do that. It will probably help you some. So let's start the evening with a nice meditation. Take a breath. We are all infinite beings. It's just who we are. But we find ourselves living a dream. We've forgotten who we were when we came into these little bodies. We had to learn everything from scratch. We had to learn new language, learn about a new culture, a new family, knew everything. We started fresh each time. And one of the things that we found out about being human was that, maybe we didn't find out, but it's really true. One of the things that happens when you're human is that you're in what we call the samsara. And when you're in the samsara, anything that you do has a karmic return. In other words, everything that you do, say, or feel with any kind of will or intent creates a structure, an outcome. So you may, in your mind, think that you're doing something really nice by washing your car or something, but you're still, there's a karma behind everything that you do. We spend a lot of time trying to shuffle around the chaos that we find here. We do one thing and then it turns and we get the karma for it, we do another thing. And we're learning throughout this whole life about karma. We learn about telling the truth. We learn about honesty and not stealing. We learn not to be selfish. We learn all kinds of things, and perhaps you don't learn them. Either way, you get a karmic return from whatever you do. So no matter what you do, good, bad, or indifferent, there is a karmic return. And usually in the human process, this is not very good because it springs out of ignorance. And ignorance is not stupidity. Ignorance means that you don't know. So all of us are born into these bodies, and while we are quite bright and quite intellectually good, we are in a cloak of ignorance. Our previous lives have been hidden from us. Our previous everything has been hidden from us. We have just been wiped clean and put back in the body. And so we have to learn through our ignorance and through our exertion and through our passion, and we make a lot of mistakes. We hurt people unintentionally, but out of our ignorance, we say things or do things that harm folks. Out of our ignorance, we become very passionate, demanding our way. I'm sure all of you have been into a restaurant or a grocery store or on an airplane where you see a 2 or 3 year old soul striking out by yelling and throwing a temper tantrum. They're completely out of control. Their passion, which comes from ignorance, has become aggression, which is not good. So everything has karma. You do something, you get a result. You do another, you get a result. And the karma isn't like I steal from you, something gets stolen from me. What it is I steal from you, there's a certain vibration there, so that puts my life in that vibration. My grandfather said he never knew of a thief that ever ended up with anything. Now, maybe in today's world that's not entirely true or correct, but I can assure you in the long scheme of things, when you take from others, it's taken from you. It might not be, you might take somebody's money, but something else in your life will be taken from you. There's karma for everything that we do. So realizing that we're in this mess here, where everything that we do has some sort of reaction or some sort of an outcome, then we realize that we need to do something different than the way we have been doing it. So they came up, whoever they are, with this thing of karma yoga. Karma yoga is selfless giving. Your whole life you give, but there's a bit of yourself in it. You want some recognition, you want some return, you want people to give back to you. There's a self in there, and so when that self gets in there, it kind of muddies everything up. So in karma yoga, you remove the self and you just give. You give from your heart. Karma yoga is bhakti yoga manifested in the world. You have this love of the divine, which I've talked about, and now we take it over and we put it into action. We take this love, this worshiping of the divine, and we put it into our every action. Our every action is an expression in karma yoga, it's an expression of bhakti yoga. If you're doing karma yoga without bhakti yoga, it's not working. You have to have bhakti, and then you express that bhakti in your karma yoga, which is selfless. If you want to be happy, live a happy life, do karma yoga. It's just great. When I was studying with my teacher, I was going through a bad time. I was just having a tough time. My job was very tough. It was just a time in my life where things were kind of rough. And I was getting down about it, getting a little depressed. So I was laying in my bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, feeling really wretched. And I thought, I've got to do something. I've got to shake myself out of this. So I knew about this laundromat about 6 blocks away. I'd washed my clothes there a couple of times. It was a filthy place. It was just filthy. The windows were dirty, the floors were, they had that white linoleum and they were all like, it looked like a brown floor. The machines were dirty. It was a filthy little laundromat, open 24 hours. So I went into the closet and into the pantry, and I pulled out all of our cleaning materials. I got a mop, a broom, dustpan, some rags, all kinds of cleaning things. Put them in my car, drove down to the laundromat. Nobody was there, the lights were on. And I went in, and for the next hour and a half, I cleaned that laundromat. I wiped down every machine. I mopped the floor, swept and mopped the floors. I washed the windows, inside and outside. And when I left, that laundromat was sparkling clean. And I packed myself up, all my stuff, and I left. I did not leave a note. I didn't say, I came here to clean this place up to make the world a better place. That's not why I did it. It was selfless. I didn't want people to recognize me. I didn't want them to even acknowledge that I did it. It was my gift for an hour and a half of very industrious work, I left part of the samsara, part of this world, better than when I found it. Karma yoga. As I said, I left no note of explanation. I'm sure that the owners, when they walked in the next day, were pretty blown away. I'd like to think they would be. But I also knew that within a few short weeks, that laundromat would probably be just as dirty as it was when I walked in. But for a short time, I cleaned up what was around me. Quietly. We're so invested in ourselves. If we do something, we want to be recognized. We want people to say thank you. In karma yoga, you do not want that. It's selfless. You don't seek acknowledgement or recognition. In fact, when people do it, it kind of ruins it. I think of karma yoga as being Santa Claus. When I had my two boys and they were young, every Christmas, Santa would bring them their favorite toys. And as a parent, that was one of my favorite times. My boys would go up and open up those presents. Look what Santa brought me there. And I saw them, I saw the look on their face. It was so beautiful. They would open up presents from their dad. They'd look at it, they'd come over and say, thank you. I said, you're welcome. But when they opened it up from Santa Claus, I got to give selflessly. I think it's a good idea for even Sangha groups from occasionally to go out and do something really nice in the community. I think that's nice. In America, when people give selflessly, people who don't know any better say that they're foolish, that they're throwing their money away, they're wasting their time on people who do not appreciate anything that you do. But in karma yoga, you don't listen to those voices. You follow your heart. You give selflessly. Not expecting a thank you, or boy, you did a good job there. You just do the good job. I cleaned that laundromat at 2 o'clock in the morning because I knew there would probably be nobody there. That's what I wanted. And it snapped me out of my depression. Just like that. Karma yoga is a good thing. It's the happy path. It's a path where you find inner happiness because your karmas are not based upon this world. They're based upon a higher awareness, a higher What is the word? Effort. When you learn to give up yourself, to become selfless, that's monumental. From birth forward, we create structures that contain our reality. In the beginning, you look at this, and it's just energy and light that has solidified into this form. Then I give it a name. It's a cup. The minute I give it a name, it becomes that, a cup. And all the cups that I've ever held, and all the cups that I've thrown away or bought or whatever, is part of this now. Before it was just form, an energetic form in a solid way. I have become an energetic form, given myself a name. I have a history. I have a driver's license. I have all kinds of things, bank accounts. Or do I? What I really am is that original thing that was before I had this body. It's the same with you. We're so busy naming things that we forget what we came from. We get so full of ourselves and all the things that we name and we accumulate and we identify with that we've lost ourselves. We've lost our heart. So, for the next few minutes, I'm going to give up my form. Take another breath. Okay, let's pull the energy back down so that you can think. One way to do that is think of your name. If you can pull it up. Say your name, give yourself a form. And notice when you do that, that you gain all of your language almost immediately. So karma yoga is kind of a fun one, but more importantly is your own spiritual advancement. See, I see you as very transitory here. We're just here for a few decades, 7, 8 maybe. Then all of this goes away. And you won't remember it again in your next life, just like you haven't remembered the last 50 incarnations you've had. You haven't even remembered the last one yet. And it's really not important. What's important is how are you handling this incarnation? Are you caught up in this world of passion and aggression? Are you wrapped up in the ignorance of who you are? You just forgot. You're ignorant of your spiritual self. Ignorance can be cured. Awareness cures ignorance. Ignorance is not stupidity. Ignorance is simply not knowing. So we seek to eliminate ignorance in our life. We seek to be more gentle, not so aggressive. We learn not to hang on to things too hard, because what we touch touches us. If I touch anger, then all the anger in the world is now touching me. If I touch selfishness, then I find myself, by the karma of being in a selfish world. We're in a particularly interesting time right now because of mass media. When I was a little boy, come out, they would talk about these, I remember I was watching, I was, I guess, 8 or 9 years old, I was watching the Democratic convention, and they had some guys running, they didn't know one, and so they all went into what they called the smoke-filled room, because everybody smoked back there. So all these governor or senators and congressmen would go into this smoke-filled room, and they'd stay in there for a couple of hours, and they would come out and they'd say, "This is our nominee." And you never knew what they said in there or how they came about that. It was secret. And that's just what they did. In today's world, people try that and it does not work. Transparency is here. That is whispered in the closets will be shouted from the rooftops. That's just the world we're in right now. And this is different. And it's good. If you have any honest view of history, you will see that we are now living in the best time that we've ever had, that we can think of. When Christ was walking around, they were crucifying people every day, cutting off hands of thieves. It was brutal. In the Dark Ages, it was filthy, so filthy. Incredibly, you would recognize people by their smell. It was dirty. And it was very painful. They had no painkillers. So if you had a hand cut off, you got the hand cut off without any painkillers. You just toughed it out, or you died. And they died very early. Not because they were unhealthy, but because their circumstances were so bad that their systems just couldn't handle it after a while. 150 years ago in America, we had slaves. We were systematically doing genocide on the natives. We were robbing our neighboring countries of their land. Dishonesty, make a treaty with the Indian nation, and then we would break it within a couple of years. It's pretty bad. And then you look at the Civil War, my God. You would have tents after battle, and outside the tents would be arms and legs that they had sawed off the guys that were injured, all without painkillers. World War I was awful. World War II was so bad. Things are a little bit better today. I like it. We have hot and cold running water. People wear deodorant. That's kind of cool. They brush their teeth. My great-grandmother and all of her sisters and all the women had snuff they'd put up their nose or under their lip. Put snuff in there, and they were all snuff. It wasn't that they wanted tobacco, but it was a way of dealing with the smell of everyone. Men smoked pipes to cover up the smell. We've come a long way. And we have a distorted view of today's world. Today there was a guy barricaded in a Trader Joe's in Southern California. All over the country, it's been broadcast. One man doing a little thing, broadcast. So you think that every store you go into now, there's going to be somebody there that's going to kill you. That's not true. In a city of 2 or 3 million people, you probably only have 10 or 12,000 criminals out of all of those millions of people. And yet that's all we see. The gang violence, the drugs. It's a very small percentage. Most people that I see out there are just trying to make a living, support their kids, make ends meet. They're decent folks. But we only see what the news media wants us to see because they are so involved in the ignorance. You're so involved in the passion and in the aggressive nature of things that they are continually feeding this illusion that the world is so horrible and that everyone in it is in great, great danger. And I find that interesting. I'm also very unattached. This moment is perfect. I'm not going to worry about the next moment. It will be perfect too. Oh, there it is. It's perfect. Does that mean that we don't have problems, that we don't have things to work on? Of course we do. But the way that you work on them is you work on yourself. If other people irritate you, then that's inside you. Outside of us we have the samsara, this dream of people and all of these things. But really, that's my illusion because the samsara is inside of me. When I clear out myself, my samsara inside of me changes, and I have a different view of the samsara outside of me. I bought a little PT Cruiser. Before I bought that Cruiser, which I like, it's a fun little car, I didn't notice them that much. But once I bought that PT Cruiser and became aware of it and driving it around, I see them everywhere. I didn't know there were so many PT Cruisers. Well, imagine what that's like when you do that with everything in your life. When you become aware of the beauty, when you establish a beauty inside yourself, then the karma of that is that you see the beauty outside of yourself. And the idea is selfless giving is that in order to give selflessly, I've got to see what's blocking me up from doing it. What part of me is so insecure that it has to hang on, pinch every penny? What is it that I have that is so valuable that I couldn't just give it away to someone in need? As a side note, when you sit with me or any teacher, you pay attention to the energy that's between the words. So this is a powerful evening. Stop your thought. Had a meeting with my students last night. It was beautiful. I talked about meditation. There's a big misconception about meditation. It begins with a practice. There's so many different practices. You use a mantra meditation. You can use just watching your breath. You can stare at a wall. You do different things, and you're doing this zazen. They call meditation practice is called zazen. So you're doing your zazen, and you're really intent on doing it right. You're sitting up straight, got everything worked out perfectly on your meditation table. You got everything worked out, or you're going through your beads, saying your mantra 108 times, and you're doing all of these things. You're really doing your zazen, and you're forgetting to meditate. Meditation takes place between your thoughts. When you can stop your thoughts, you're meditating. And so the practice, the zazen of whatever you're doing to sit and zazen is good. It's necessary because you're setting up an intention. I'm going to sit here, I'm going to do this practice, and now I'm going to say my mantra, or I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to focus on this, and the intention behind the meditation is enlightenment or self-discovery, finding your spiritual nature. The dissolving of the dream. So you sit and you practice your meditation in your zazen, but you forget, after a while you just forget. You're so busy doing your zazen that you forget to meditate. So you meditate. Maybe you're using a mantra. Shring, the mantra of Lakshmi. So it goes like this. Shring, shring, shring. Shring, shring. You're becoming aware of the thoughtless part between the mantra. But people get caught up in it, so they're so busy going shring, 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 that they never go between the thoughts. They're so busy practicing their zazen that they lose the meditation. The meditation is just that 1 or 2 or 3 seconds that has no thought. It's a little crack that for just a moment your awareness slips through, and this world for a second goes away. Then you come back, a second later, shring, shring, shring. Shring. You don't let the practice get in the way of your meditation. Any action you do in this plane creates karma, and what we're seeking is to move beyond karma, to be selfless, to move into a state of meditation for just a few seconds. You may be meditating for 30 or 40 minutes, but in that 30 or 40 minutes, maybe you have 2 seconds here, 10 seconds there, 5 seconds here, then all these thoughts, and you go, and then you stop them. So maybe out of 40 minutes of meditation, you have a total of 4 minutes of thoughtless awareness. That's pretty good. And those moments of insight, those moments of dissolution, start dissolving the dream inside of yourself, and you become less and less attached to the dream that you've had your whole life about who you are and what you are, and all the things that have happened to you, and all the people that have mistreated you, and all of that stuff. You just let them go. They're all a result of karma that springs forth from aggression and passion and ignorance. And people around you are caught up in those three things. Their whole world is news, weather, sports, sex, drugs, rock and roll. That's where they're involved. Politics, religion, family. You, your pets, all of these things are an illusion. They're a very real illusion, that's for sure. You have them, you're very attached to them, because that's who you think you are. You are making yourself, you're defining yourself by those things around you. What your family is, what your society is, what your political party is doing, what's going on in government, what's going on in the churches or the religions, how your religion is better than somebody else's religion, and we're getting all this competition and adversarial things happening. Is our high school football team going to fight the other high school football team in our city? A great rivalry. It's just a game. We lose ourselves in these worlds. And it's interesting. I mean, I understand that. It's a life. But when you meditate, you move beyond it. And in moving beyond it, you have a clearer view of the world and of your life than you ever had before, because all of these different things start to loosen up and move away. And in this part where you're just holding on to everything in your life, it starts to loosen, because you realize that everything is God. Everything is the divine manifesting. And you are the divine. And you are manifesting. And as you set your intention for just a couple of times a day, then when you come back, you bring that pristine, beautiful energy into your life. And you become aware of your bhakti, your love, unconditional love, everything around you, unconditional. And then in your actions, you do karma yoga. You take that unconditional love and you give it selflessly to the world. When you practice karma yoga, you're creating a new karma. You're creating a karma that causes you to grow spiritually, to be happier. The reason you're unhappy is because you're caught up in ignorance and passion. You have aggression, and it's creating all of this stuff that's making your life so miserable. It's making you judge other people because you think they're separate from you. You have the good guys, the bad guys. You're caught up in duality. You're caught up in this dream of suffering, to the degree that after a while most everybody will say, oh, this is a hell world. This is such a terrible world. I don't want to reincarnate here. I don't want to come back here. This is a terrible place. And that's because they're terrible people. Eliminate that from your being. It doesn't matter where you're at. Where there is no judgment, there is no pain. And yet you judge all the time. You judge how people dress. You judge how they walk down the street. You judge if they're misbehaving in your mind. You judge everything, and you live a painful existence. Can you stop it? Yes, you can. And it begins with your meditation every morning and every evening. You sit, you meditate. And in that zazen, you stop your thought maybe a total of 40, 50 seconds. But that 40, 50 seconds clumps together, and you carry it with you throughout the day. And over the days, weeks, and months of the dissolution of the self, where you're pulling this energy constantly inside of you, where you're constantly forgiving others, where you're constantly seeking the beauty in life, where you are standing and watching the world outside of you in breathless awe and wonder. You have blown away the suffering and the heartache that is found in this world because you have dissolved it within inside yourself. Now you see a lot of PT cruisers, bad analogy, but you get the drift. Before you just saw one or two, but now that you're driving a PT cruiser, you see it everywhere. When you dissolve the aggression, the anger, the biases, the prejudices, the racism, when you dissolve all of that, then you start seeing the world outside there with less of it, because that's the karma. That's the karma of not indulging in those actions. Can you let go of who you think you are? Are you so tied up in who you think your life is? The car that you drive, I'm me, I'm this age, I wear these clothes, I speak this language, this is me, and all of my friends agree. Is that so? And what does that get you? Well, my friends, we all stick together, we protect each other, we look out for each other. Yeah, and what does that get you? You're living in a prison with velvet bars, velvet covered bars. You think they feel so good, but they trap you. You can get free 40, 60 seconds in the morning, 40, 60 seconds in the evening, when you pay attention to those moments between your thoughts, when you enter fully into that place between the thoughts. That's when you get free. And these moments start clumping together, and they start making a difference inside of you. You'll find that without even trying, you will start, after a while, you'll find that you are a slave to the truth. You're not trapped anymore. In spiritual practice, we have all of these words. Words like liberation, enlightenment, transcendence, purity, love. Meditation brings all of that into your life. Then it helps to be around people who can stop their thought. There are lots of us. So when you're around someone who can stop their thought and your heart is open, you'll find that they provide a door for you to walk through. And when you walk through that door, you'll find there never was a door. It was just a trick to get you into the divine. Good. Okay. Take another breath. Think of your name. Open your eyes if they're closed. And be present. So I've rambled on between a lot of silence. I can't remember a word I said, but the words I said tonight are just words. This was a good evening. Do you have any comments or questions? Anything you'd like to share?
How is it selfless if it makes you feel good?
Because the question was, how is it selfless if it makes you feel good? Because you're not doing it for recognition. If you're expecting some sort of acknowledgement or appreciation, a thank you, or somebody saying, oh, he's a good person, then that's self. But when you do it without self, well, I watched you today. There was a little bit of self in it, but we were walking down the street and this lady she was a beggar, and you went over and you gave her some money. It was selfless. Now, she did say thank you and everything else, so there was a little self there, but it would have been better if she hadn't even, there it was. Maybe she's asleep and you got the money in or something. There's different ways. But if you think that you need some sort of return to just give, then it's self. If you don't expect a return, then it's selfless. And the universe has there's a real interesting karma to that. Because when you give selflessly, the universe really has a good, strong karmic return for that. But when you give with seeking some sort of acknowledgement, some sort of a thing like that, then the universe gives you a karmic return for that too, which is not as happy, it's not as good. And you can't give karma yoga, in my mind, unless you have love. And love, karma yoga, and unconditional love is expressed in selfless giving. I do a lot of selfless giving, and it all comes from love. The only reason I'm here is to express love selflessly. Sometimes I do better than others. But if you want to be happy, get the love in your heart and then express that love selflessly. Traditionally, they say, the religions kind of got on this. If you give to God, God will reward you. Well, that is true, because you're giving to something that's non-physical, but usually that ends up in the coffers of some church or something. I have people that give to me selflessly. I'm sure they're happy. They don't get an invoice. It's nice. When you give to a teacher, are you giving because you want the teacher to recognize you? Is the gift that you're giving your teacher given with some sort of resentment Like I could be spending this money at Starbucks or something like that. You know, this $20 I'm giving, I could go to a movie. Or are you giving it because your heart's full of love for the divine? How you give is reflected back to you as karma. So that's where it is. I've seen so many people that they'll give you anything, but you better darn sure say thank you and acknowledge them and tell everybody you know how generous that they were to you. They really want that. That's not selfless. And it doesn't bring very much happiness. Santa Claus. I got the biggest kick watching my kids open those presents, and they had nobody to thank. They were just there. Oh, Santa Claus. You know, well, yeah, that was good. You were a good boy, you know. I miss those Christmases with my kids. Being selfless. But I found that I can be selfless in other ways. And for me, I give selflessly all the time. People call me up 24/7. I don't turn them away. I'm not saying that for you to say, oh, he's a good guy. No, I'm just saying it's just what I do. So, did that answer your question? It's kind of a tough one.
Well, yeah. Yes, to do with me.
Yeah. Selfless. You know, selfless giving. Hard to do. But it helps if you have a lot of love. If you recognize the oneness of life, then when you're doing something for somebody else, it's just so joyous. I knew a teacher once who had a friend who was dying. So he went to a far country. He spent months learning spiritual techniques for healing just for his friend. Selfless. He didn't expect anybody to say, thank you, thank you. No, he did it because he had love. It's amazing. What are you doing with your life selflessly? How are you expressing the love of the divine in everyday actions? I cleaned out a laundromat once. I didn't leave a note saying, you know, TC was here, you know. I hope you enjoy what I did. Left no notes like that. I cleaned it and left. And I knew that it was temporary. It was going to get dirty again. The next day it was going to start getting dirty. But for a few moments, in this world, I did something selflessly. So that just for a few moments the next morning, a few people would walk in and they would say, wow, look at this. Any other questions or comments?
Beginner's mind and karma yoga.
Yeah, beginner's mind. Yeah. Beginner's mind.
How do you work with that?
I think so. I have to stop before I answer you. Beginner's mind means that you have an expectation of knowledge. You are ignorant because you're a beginner, but beginners don't stay ignorant. The idea that they're a beginner means that they've already set their intention ahead to learn a body of knowledge or to learn something. But they're a beginner. They haven't been jaded. They haven't been You know, their zazen, when you first start to meditate, your zazen is usually really good. I've seen people who study with me, the first time they meditate, and about first or second time, they go into samadhi. And then they spend the next 20 years trying to get back there. But the beginner's mind was so clean that they had no barriers, and so the energy just took them right through. Beginner's mind is innocent. It doesn't know enough to structure things yet. It's, you know, being innocent, to be like a child. You hear this a lot. To be childlike. To not be jaded. To not look at things through decades of actions and theories and philosophies and experiences, but to see it clearly and cleanly. One of the things that I have found as a result of meditating on the high heart is that it brings back beginner's mind to me for a little bit. I start losing all of those things that have structured over me over the years, all of my ideas about what self-discovery was, all of my ideas about who I was and what other people are, and I just have dissolved them all in the high heart, and then I find myself in beginner's mind for just a little bit. I have removed all of my preconceptions, everything else. I've gotten into beginner's mind. One of the reasons there's been so much silence this evening is because I have no mind. I don't come in with a script. Maybe in the future I won't say anything. So it was beginner's mind. What was the second part?
How it works with karma yoga.
Ah. When you're in beginner's mind, you are in karma yoga because usually you don't have some preconception about the right way and the wrong way. You just do what feels correct. A lot of people's karma yoga is very limited because they think, well, if I'm going to give, I have certain parameters I'm going to give in. And so they can't, their heart is closed in a sense, you know. But when you have beginner's mind and you come from your heart, the karma is so pure. Any other questions? Okay. Good. Let's have, why don't you play Mount Shasta? Would you play that? We'll finish the evening with this song. I'd like for all of you that are present and also on the video to go to my website and send in any questions or comments you have so that I can address them next time we meet. It's 72. It's 72. I don't know how many more times we'll have this, so I tricked her up there. So, yeah, send in your questions and your comments. I would like that. I'd like to hear from you. So now, we can start.
Thank you.